Hello, I'm Jerry Stewart. Last night, my wife Kelly and I had the opportunity to go to an event. It was an event put on by Texas conservative leaders. The idea was to bring people of like mind, conservative, patriotic folks who wanted to come together and first of all recognize some special ones in the group who have gone sort of, you might say, up and beyond the call of duty to make real differences in Texas for the betterment of our state. The other opportunity was just so we could get together and talk. And while I was speaking with one of the folks at our table, I found that he's getting ready to run for a political office in our state. And we began to talk about this idea about getting involved. As we talk about and think through our nation's history, and we look at a number of the people, why are there some people that continue to stand out, to be remembered? Just how does their memory continue to withstand all the time that has passed? Is it their position in life or their money or their accomplishments? I believe it has to do more with this word called character. Now, that's a word we don't hear much about today, but the truth is this: character makes leaders, and true leaders have a powerful influence in our society. Listen to these quick stories. Long before Abraham Lincoln ever became president, when he was a young man working as a store clerk, one day he noticed that somehow during a sale he had overcharged one customer, a lady. Believe it or not, he had overcharged her 6 cents. Now, that may seem insignificant to some, but back then, not to him. So at the end of that day, Abraham Lincoln, young man Abraham Lincoln, walked 4 miles to that woman's home to return that 6 cents. And she was amazed. You see, it's no accident that Abraham Lincoln was called Honest Abe. He was an honest man, a man of character. And I was thinking of some others, because there's another man in our American history who, solely based on his character, he drew men to him to take on a task, a battle that cost so many their lives. Listen to this story. In 1898, when the United States went to war with Spain, a man by the name of Theodore Roosevelt was the Assistant Secretary of the Navy. Now, Roosevelt had quite a reputation at that time as a frontiersman and as being a man ready for any rough task needing to be done. So, with the okay of the U.S. government, Theodore Roosevelt resigned his position as Assistant Secretary of the Navy, and along with his friend Dr. Leonard Wood, he began to form a small army of special men to fight in that war. Now, this group of men were to be all expert horsemen, and they were officially designated as the 1st United States Volunteer Cavalry. Now, I said, yep, volunteer cavalry. Now, privately, Roosevelt wondered if anyone would volunteer for such a dangerous job. But he put out the word, and to his credit, literally thousands of men volunteered. They came from everywhere. And after they were chosen and trained, they were exceptionally good soldiers. A crack cavalry unit of 1,000 expert horsemen who came to be known as, the Rough Riders. Now, in a very short time, these Rough Riders were ready for battle, and a battle was coming. So they traveled by train from Texas to Florida with their horses, and they were given their orders to fight the Spaniards on a tiny island many of them had never heard of before, an island called Cuba. But here's where the twist comes. Even though they had been trained as a cavalry, they were told that their horses, believe it or not, their horses would have to be left behind. They would now be foot soldiers. But not one Rough Rider quit or resigned. They would follow their leader, Theodore Roosevelt, into the very face of death, and they were about to be there. On July the 1st, 1898, they saw the face of death, and they stood firm, with Theodore Roosevelt literally in the front, leading his men by example. These 1,000 Rough Riders on foot charged up San Juan Hill, and they won that battle. And Theodore Roosevelt became a national hero. And later, he was the youngest U.S. president ever in our U.S. history. Now, what makes a leader? Character. And later in life, Theodore Roosevelt gave one of the most powerful and quoted speeches ever, which contains a challenge we must all consider today. Read these telling words by Theodore Roosevelt. He said this: "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without erring or shortcoming, but who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself for a worthy cause, and who, at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place will never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat, because all they do is stand by and watch." Wow, what a speech. And you know what? Now is the time for each of us in America to ask what we are doing ourselves. Are we standing? Do we need to test our character to quit watching from the sideline and get in the arena? And we must ask ourselves this question: where are we standing right now? Very sober, very serious. And I can tell you folks, if we don't find our character, if we don't stand up for what we know to be good and right for America, if we don't stand, someday there will be no America to stand for. I'm Jerry Stewart. God bless you. See you next time.